I told my wife that, if this gets made into a series, there's only one person who can play Harish Khanna, and that's me.
I was halfway through the book and I started reading when I started auditioning for Lata. But I never actually got to finish it because I started focusing on the script more.
The book really, reading the book informed the character. And I think, as Namit said, it's such a gift and a privilege to have read that because, I mean, even the night before we were shooting a particular scene, I would read the chapter. And that would get my sort of imagination. I could build Amit in that scenario.
Hi guys, this is Ankita. You're tuned to PeepingMoon.com. Today we have with us the cast of A Suitable Boy, Tanya, Namit, Danesh, and Mikhail. Everyone, hello everyone.
Hello, Ankita.
Hello,
Hi, hi
hello,
guys. Hi
Ankita.
Ankita.
Hello,
How are you?
Ankita. Hello, Ankita.
I think I'll bookmark this. Hello Ankita. This will stay with me forever now. I'll do that for sure. I'll dive in straight. I would love to know how all of you came on board to work with Mira Nair, starting from Tanya.
Why do I always go first? But no. So actually, I was working as a copywriter at the time. And one of my friends from my theater circuit, he called me up to tell me that there was this audition that he was doing because he was working as a casting director. And he wanted me to come in and audition. And I agreed and I met Dilip Shankar sir there. And that's how I learned about A Suitable Boy being adapted into a series because I had heard a lot about the novel, and my best friend is a huge, she's like in love with the novel to say the least. And yeah, I mean that's after my first reading with Sir, he called me to do another scene with him, and that's how it sort of just went on. And after a while, I mean, I did not hear back from him for quite a long time. And then one day, I get a call from Sir saying that Mira would like to do a Skype interview with you. So would that be okay? And I talked to Mira Nair, the legend, on a Skype interview, and then she came to Delhi to audition me in person. And that's how just Lata came for me.
That's nice. What about you guys?
Who should go in first?
You will now Tanya, Tanya, please.
I think Namit, go ahead.
Well, I
Of
think
course.
I mean, as I've been saying that it's a book that I've lived with for a long time. Yes, it's a very long book. It took me a long time to read it, but that's also the reason why I have been with it for a long time. I remember finishing it in 2015, and I told my wife that if this gets made into a series, there's only one person who can play Harish Khanna, and that's me. Okay, and that's a conversation that ended there. But meanwhile, 8 months down the lane, I am with Mira Nair, and we are performing Monsoon Wedding, the musical version of it, in California. And I get to know that the series is being made, and then there's a casual sort of a conversation between Mira and me about how there's only one person in this world who should be directing it. And 8 months pass again, and Mira and me, we are having lunch uh, in South Bombay, and she tells me that Namit, I am directing the show. And I immediately pop out of my chair seat and say, "Hey, Harish Khanna is here." And she said, "Okay." She's like, "Okay, I'm not too sure about this." And she sort of gives me a look, which is, "I don't know. I don't know. Let's see what happens." But I kept testing for it. Also, it took a long time for the project to come together because it was there were many things which were obviously it's a big project, right? And finally, just before the shoot, I think there are only two parts which have not been cast: Kabir Durrani and Harish Khanna. And Mira gives me a call and she says, I want to give you another chance because I think I haven't given you enough of a chance for Harish Khanna. Just test for that last time. Come to Delhi and test." And here I am going to Delhi on a lazy, I think Monday or Wednesday afternoon. and Tanya Maniktala, that's the first person I see in the room, and I test with her, and Harish Khanna comes alive because of Tanya Maniktala. I always say this, and I will say this throughout all my interviews. And Mira comes up to me and says, "Hey, I found my Harish." That's my story, guys.
Yeah.
What about you, Danish, as we
That's such a
Sorry?
Danesh, you go
Oh,
first.
Yeah,
okay, okay.
both of you.
Okay, I'll go. How did so my mom and Mira met for some other work. And so my mom, Mira is into yoga, and my mom is part of the yoga community that Mira also practices with. So Mira came to Bombay, I think, for Suitable Boy for some work regarding it. And they were still looking for Kabir. So my mom went, and my mom is all excited that, hey, I'm meeting Mira Nair. Should I show her your photos? And I'm saying, Mother, please, that's not how it works. Control yourself. But she kept everything ready, just in case. So she goes and meets Mira, and they have a conversation. She's like, "What does your son do?" My mom's like, "Oh, he's an actor, vagara vagara." And she says, "Show me his photos." So she shows her my photos, and I think in like 15 minutes, I get a call from the casting director, and then I get called into audition. So I did 2 rounds of audition, and the third round, Tanya flew down to screen test with me to Bombay. She flew to Bombay for me, Namit, just saying. So she flew down to screen test with me. Small wins. And in, I think, less than 2 weeks after that, we were prepping, and a month after that, shoot had begun. It was just a blitz, but a beautiful way to start. That's the short
And
version.
last but not the least, you, Mikhail.
Okay, I'm gonna do a short version of the story, but basically in 2018, I was playing a cricket match, and I took this amazing catch, if I may say so myself, off this director's bowling. And I'm so glad I took that catch because if I dropped the ball, I might not be here. But anyway, so he cast me after this. After I took the catch, he was like, "Listen, I'm looking for an actor to be part of this play." And I was like, "Oh wow, yeah, absolutely, I'd definitely do it." It was at the Royal Court. So I do the play, and who's in the audience? Mira Nair. And of all the days, I was just so great. I went up, and she was in the foyer after, and I went up to her and I said, Mira, I love your work, and I've actually just auditioned for a Suitable Boy, but I haven't heard back. And she's like, "Oh, really? I haven't seen your tape. Can you send it to me?" And she gave me her personal email. And the next day, I got an email from her saying, "Loved your tape. I'd like you to prep these 6 scenes and meet me." She set up a meeting, brought a producer in from the BBC, and it was so lovely. She just like put me at ease and talked to me, and she was my Lata actually. She read Lata, and it was and it was so wonderful. And then unfortunately, a Suitable Boy got pushed by a year, and in that time, I didn't know that. I wrote to Mira and said, Mira, I've got some other work came up, this other project, but Amit is still very much in my heart. And maybe 3 months later, I got an email from Mira saying, "You're very much in my heart for Amit." And then I got the role. But the amazing thing is that the book was given to me on my 15th birthday by my grandparents, and the inscription was "To our Suitable Boy." And it almost feels like it was destined to happen. It was very serendipitous. The fact that Mira was in the audience that day, the fact it was almost like it was written a long time ago. So I'm very glad that it came my way.
So I can
So
say
that's how
that
it happened.
Namit and Mikhail, you both have read the book. Is it safe to say on record you both have read it in detail?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And what about Tanya and Danish? Have you guys read the book?
Okay. To be very
Suddenly,
fair,
this
it
feels
is
like a school class.
Yeah.
Have you done the homework? Have you
Fail,
done the
fail.
homework?
I was trying
Please
to read
speak
that
up.
fast.
I am halfway through
Hello.
I was halfway through the book, and I started reading when I started auditioning for Lata. But I never actually got to finish it because I started focusing on the script more. So, I mean, I got to learn about everything that happened in the show, in the book, through the script. But yeah, I'm planning on definitely like going back to the book soon.
Are you really fetching the book, Danesh? Are you going to show us that?
See, this is
You
proof.
got the book?
Cool. This is proof. I have not read the whole book because when I got the part, there was no time. I only managed to read the script, but during the course of the show and the prep, I started reading the book, and I realized that it could take me 15 years. So I went and read only I went and read only Kabir's parts through the book, and now I am slowly going through the book as it is. But I have so to me it was that I don't need to know what happens in Amit or Harish or Lata's life. I need to know what happens in Kabir's timeline. So I made it a task to prep for the show to read Kabir's timeline in the book.
Why I asked the question, I'm going to start with you from here. Sometimes does it happen that when you have already read the book in literature format, it impacts the scenes or the way you're going to perform them on screen, or it makes it easier for you because you already know the character from the, I would say, the writer's point of view. But now this is a certainly different medium. Is the director is trying to give you a platform to perform, but in a compact fashion. Of course, you can't have like such a humongous book and the entire character to be put in one particular mold. So does it help or not?
I think I'll just go for this answer first. I think it's a privilege, and in this case, it definitely was. I remember that there was a particular scene that I was going to be playing out, that I was going to be shooting for the next day. And each time I would be going for a particular scene, I would know my schedule, obviously. And the night before, I would read that same chapter. So you have the lines on the paper, you have your dialogues, you have the things which you can work with from the book, from the script. But you also have a book. You also have descriptions which you can sort of imbibe from, which you can take from. Like I remember that there was a description of Harish talking and scratching his head, and that was something which I was struggling with when I was reading the scene. I was saying, why, how should I say this? And how would it feel real? And how would the joke probably land? And that gave me a cue into that moment. And that's how it really helped me. So it is, for me, I think it was a complete privilege to not only know Harish through the version that Andrew Davis has churned out, but also this Bible, this book, this big long book that I have, that I can always go back to and dive into deeper, and imbibe some things from there constantly. And I actually did, and there were many suggestions which I think have finally found their way into the series also.
The book really, reading the book informed the character. And I think, as Namit said, it's such a gift and a privilege to have read that because, I mean, even the night before we were shooting a particular scene, I would read the chapter. And that would get my sort of imagination. I could build Amit in that scenario before I was actually there. And that gave me a chance to sort of be in that world before I was in that world. And I think what the amazing thing was that things that I visualized were already recreated and in almost the same way that my imagination was working. So for me, it really helped me reading the book.
Tanya and
Yeah, definitely. I would also constantly go back to the book to sort of understand where Lata was placed emotionally because I understood the chronology in terms of the script, but I also had to get an understanding of what was going on inside Lata. And just to get an overall understanding of the character and how what she is like and just how her perspective is towards everything around her. So definitely it was very helpful, and I think everybody had this. It is a privilege to have a sort of a guide to go back to when you don't really know what you want to do with it. So this book, there's this huge, expansive book where you could just go to any chapter, and it would give you so much more in-depth feeling of what the characters are like.
Danish.
I agree with everyone, but I also disagree a little bit. So yes, for me, it was more like you have an entire when we get a script, we form, at least I form a character sketch for my character. Now, when you have a book, it's formed a character sketch for you. You have all this information about the person, and everything exists. But what I found was the person who wrote the book had a vision for Kabir. The reader, and as the actor playing Kabir had one vision for Kabir, and both those get thrown right out the window when you go on set and you see what the director has, because that's the final vision, which is most important. And in for me, I was doing a lot of reading the scene before, and I did read. Do I was over prepping because I had so much information also. So what worked for me, I think it depends with each director and each situation. What worked for me was to stop doing that and just see what came from Mira and what she wanted and what the director had in mind. Because what I read and what I perceive did not always match. And that's the important part, that we're all on the same page at the end of the day. So for me, it works both ways.
Okay, I'll just wrap it with like one comprehensive question for you all. This series is already out in for the BBC audience. There have been a mixed bag of reviews, certainly, because of course not everyone can have the same opinion. And now we Indian audience are finally getting to see it after a lot of wait. Finally, in a week's time. Do you think that it somewhere helps or not that already a section of audience have seen it and have a certain kind of interpretation available online if you go and see a certain set of reviews and a certain set of takes is already there? Or do you think that Indian audience will be far more easily able to relate it because maybe we have this post-independence and partition era references and the stories and the characters which are closer to maybe say our culture and the language we understand?
Mikhail, why don't you go? You are a representative from UK. You have already seen this show with a million others in the UK.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Namit, for passing the ball. I, I think, well, the show is absolutely unbelievable. And yes, I'm an Indian. I grew up in India. Yes, I currently live in the UK. But the reactions from everyone I've encountered has been so phenomenal. Everyone has responded to the show in ways that I didn't even imagine. I didn't even think people who experienced a completely different culture could relate to our culture in such a palpable way. And I think, sure, I mean, not everyone will agree on the same things, and everyone's got their own perspectives. But on the whole, the response has been really, really, really positive. And I think it will be interesting to see how India responds, because I think this show is very much about us and who we are. And yeah, perhaps if it were me, I would have wanted the whole world to experience at the same time. But such is not the case. And now with Netflix, the whole world pretty much, apart from America, will experience it at the same time. And I think it would be fantastic to see that response. And I think audiences today are smart enough to judge for themselves and to respond for themselves without, looking at how one culture, one area of the world received it. And sure, and I think you get different reactions. I think that's part of life. It'd be boring if everyone agreed on everything. But I think India will. Well, I think India will love it.
And any parting words from you all three on this one?
I agree with him.
I just want to say that I agree with Mikhail. I agree with Tanya. What I want to say is that A Suitable Boy is a classic story, and yes, it's been shown to one part of our globe, but that's only one part. It's a classic story about relationships, and it's very unlike the other projects which the other kind of content that we see, we are used to seeing content which sort of evaporates from our imagination and our memories very quickly. But I think A Suitable Boy is not that kind of a project. It's a classic story which will stay in your mind and you would want to revisit it. And
Yeah.
that's why on Netflix and for a bigger audience, I guess. Yes.
And Tanya, because we started with you, we'll end with you.
Sure, I'm very excited for Suitable Boy to be released globally now because a lot of my friends and my family members haven't seen it yet. So it's just sort of these nerves building up now inside me for this big global release. And I mean, I'm just excited to see how the audience is going to receive it. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of love. And yeah, I mean, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and there's going to be differing opinion on things. But you've got to take it as it comes. And with the love, there's also going to be a lot of criticism, but you just have to learn to be humble, learn from it, and just move on and learn what you can do better next time.
Thank you everyone for your time. I know we are short on time here, so I'll wrap it here. But here's wishing you all the best. Trust me, Indian audience are waiting to see it. It's on my timeline, just waiting for another week. And I think at that time we'll be able to come back with a more positive feedback or whatever feedback finally once we lay our eyes on it. But
There
congratulations,
will
guys,
be only
and
positive
hope this.
feedback.
Yes.
I'll make sure now, Namit, I'm going to channelize it like, hello, Ankita, the positive feedbacks also gets channelized.
Manifesting that, yeah.
Hello, Ankita. Hello, Ankita.
But thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Wishing you all the luck and yeah, to successful times ahead.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Ankita.
Thank you.
Thank you.